Welcome to Spirited Investigations, and welcome to the very haunted history of Louisiana. This list of 10 is part of a playlist of gentle listening, spooky collections from across the USA. The screen fades to black so you can enjoy the stories without distractions. Please do consider a like and subscribe if you enjoy this type of content. First is the USS Kidd in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. The USS Kidd is a World War II and Korean warship which is docked in Baton Rouge and open for visitors to look around. As a full-on naval destroyer, it was heavily involved in both wars, including a kamikaze attack on April 11, 1945, which killed 38 sailors and wounded 55 others. The USS Kidd was returned and docked along the Mississippi, where it serves as a war memorial to those who died. Visitors claim to see the spirits of the men killed in the kamikaze attack throughout the ship, the uniforms clearly evident. There are also partial ghosts, arms and legs with nobody attached to them. Some hear sailors' voices from the sleeping quarters. And number 2 is Alice the Witch's grave in Zachary, Louisiana. Just outside Zachary is a small cemetery with only one of its graves that is above the ground. That grave contains the remains of a woman named Alice, who many people claim to have been a witch. Bizarrely enough, on 3 separate occasions during the 1950s and 1960s, the large stone marble slab on top of the grave was removed by someone and her remains were left outside the grave. Whether it was some kind of grave robbing for valuables or part of a ritual is unknown. The remains were placed back inside the grave each time, but something had to be done to stop it from happening again. Large heavy iron bars are placed on the grave to, as they said, hold her spirit in. Those were later found removed, and her remains were again found outside the grave. Locals claim you can see her walk around the cemetery at night, and you can hear her voice calling out for her loved ones. At number 3 is the Bentley Hotel in Alexandria, Louisiana. The Bentley Hotel opened in 1908 in downtown Alexandria. This hotel is said to be haunted by several ghosts, which include the original builder, Joseph Bentley, who passed away on the 3rd floor. He can be seen in the halls of the building even during the day. 2 generals are also said to haunt the building, General Patton and General Bradley, who are heard discussing war plans and strategies in the Mirror Room Lounge. The hotel itself reopened as the Mirror Room Lounge on May 1st, 2015. Fourth on our list is the Logan Mansion in Shreveport, Louisiana. This Victorian-style house was built in 1897 for a beer distributor named Lafayette R. Logan. Local legend is that an 11-year-old girl called Theodora Hunt leapt to her death from the front window of the attic in 1904. The current owners, Vicky and Billy LeBrun, keep a log of any spooky events to happen at the mansion, such as objects moving from their set positions, a door that locks and unlocks by itself, and sounds of giggling by a young girl in the attic. There have been recorded sightings of a ghostly figure in the attic window, right where the little girl fell to her death. At the halfway point we have the tomb of Marie Laveau, the Voodoo Queen in New Orleans. Her tomb has been restored and cleaned up several times because of a rumour which said that Laveau would grant wishes if you drew an X on the tomb. Then you should turn around 3 times, knock on the tomb, and yell out your wish. If it was granted, the person had to return to the tomb, circle the X that they had drawn, and leave Laveau an offering. Today, no visit is allowed to the cemetery without a licensed tour guide, and drawing on the tomb is, of course, banned. But it's still one of the spookiest cemeteries in the state, where many ghosts of Louisiana are said to wander. For number 6 we have the Myrtles Plantation in St. Francisville. A list of haunted places in Louisiana does have to include what's known as one of the most haunted places on Earth. It's believed to contain a total of 12 restless spirits from its 200 years of history. Let's have a bit of that history. In 1796, the land the plantation sits on was bought by David Bradford, who was a general in the American Revolutionary War. The house was built and he named it Laurel Grove. The land and house were passed to his daughter and her husband on his death, Clark Woodruff. Now this is where the paranormal events begin. Clark had an affair with one of the slaves on the property, who was called Chloe. Back in those times, refusing the demands of the boss would result in terrible punishments, so it's popularly thought that she was kind of trapped and had no real way to refuse his advances. The affair lasted for several years, until Chloe became worried about her other boss, Clark's wife, finding out, and she would eavesdrop on conversations. Clark discovered this and ordered one of her ears to be chopped off, which is why she would be seen afterwards wearing a turban to cover her disfigurement. Chloe sought revenge for such a punishment, and while Clark was away, put poison in the rest of the family's food, resulting in the death of Mrs. Woodruff and 2 of the children. The other slaves discovered what had been going on. They caught her, hung her from a tree, and threw the body into the nearby river. It was renamed to the Myrtles Plantation when it was sold to Ruffin Gray Sterling in 1834. In 1874, an unnamed man shot the husband of one of Mr. Sterling's daughters. He ran back in the house, stumbled over the stairs, and died in his wife's arms. In the 1970s, the plantation was bought by the Mayer family, who opened it as a bed and breakfast. Guests began to report hearing strange noises. Others saw ghostly apparitions, including a young woman wearing a turban. There are other spirits, some believed to be Native American. Others say they've caught glimpses of Woodruff's children appearing in the mirror near to the room where they were poisoned. At number 7 is Cretan Point in Sunset. While the grounds are now gated and private, people still try to visit this haunted plantation. During the Civil War, 2 battles were fought nearby in 1863, the Battle of Buzzard's Prairie in the October and the Battle of Bayeux-Bourbeau in the November. There were hundreds of deaths during these 2 battles. Visitors claimed to smell sulphur from the gunshots and to see the spirits of the fallen Union and Confederate soldiers on the plantation grounds to this day. At spot number 8 is the Calcasso Courthouse in Lake Charles. Local legend says it's home to a restless spirit by the name of Tony Joe. Although she was born Annie Beatrice McQuiston, Tony Joe was the first woman in Louisiana to be executed in the electric chair. She was known in the town as the Tigress. As a child, she grew up in a rough household and began going down a bad path in life. She was arrested multiple times, including a time when she cut a man's ear off with scissors. Her final arrest was for shooting and killing a used car salesman. Residents and employees at the courthouse say she haunts the courthouse to this day. Many of them claim you can still smell her perfume in the halls. Another smell is not so pleasant. It's of burning hair from her execution. There's also the sound of slow footsteps echoing from her death march. At number 9 is the Miller Cemetery in Eunice. While the official name for this cemetery is Miller Cemetery, locals call it Headless Cemetery. Sure enough, as may be expected, the ghost who roams around the graves is of a headless man, who's often seen at night. He wasn't decapitated when alive. It's said his spirit wanders like that because his tombstone used to have his picture on it, and it's now unrecognizable. Nobody knows what he looked like, and so he has no head when people see him. Also, there are many reports of cars failing to start or refusing to run correctly on the gravel road by the cemetery. Finally, in more ways than one, is the police shootout location of a pair of very famous villains. It's Bonnie and Clyde's last stop in Gippsland, Louisiana. About halfway between Monroe and Shreveport is the small town of Gippsland, in Bienville Parish. The infamous couple, Bonnie and Clyde, died here on May 23, 1934, when police from Louisiana and Texas cornered them. More than 100 bullets riddled their stolen car, killing them both. Visitors and residents claim that if you go to the site of their death, located on Route 154, about 7 miles south of the Ambush Museum, the ghosts of Bonnie and Clyde make themselves well known. Legend says that on full moon nights you can hear gunfire and screaming in what seems like a paranormal loop of the deadly shootout from all those years ago. The spot where Bonnie and Clyde's lives were ended is marked by 2 large gravestone-type stones. Thank you for joining us on this little journey. From a haunted ship to a voodoo tomb, Louisiana certainly has some extraordinary tales. It's another state that might well get a second list of hauntings in the future. Do let me know. I hope you'll be here for the next state on our list, which is Maine.